I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd throw away a good man over something as stupid as boredom. My name's Mia, I'm 29, and until a month ago, I was married to Ethan, a 31-year-old engineer who I'd convinced myself was the most boring person on earth. We've been together for 5 years, married for 3, living in a modest but tidy apartment in Denver. The place is practical, just like him, neutral walls, a bookshelf filled with his engineering manuals, a kitchen that always smells like his morning oatmeal. My touch is there too, potted plants I sometimes forget to water, a bright yellow throw blanket on the couch, a stack of marketing books on the coffee table from my job at a local ad agency. But even with my bursts of color, the apartment felt as predictable as Ethan himself. Ethan's the kind of guy who thrives on routine. He wakes up at 6 a.m. every day, makes his oatmeal with exactly 2 spoonfuls of honey, goes to work at his engineering firm, comes home, and spends his evenings either reading or tinkering with some gadget in his makeshift workshop in the spare room. He wears the same rotation of button-ups and khakis, his hair always neatly combed, his glasses always smudge-free. He's reliable, sweet in his own way, always remembers to pick up my favorite almond milk, always fixes the leaky faucet before I even notice it's dripping. But reliable doesn't mean exciting, and lately, I'd started to feel like I was drowning in the monotony of our life. It wasn't always like this. When we met at a mutual friend's barbecue, he charmed me with his quiet wit, the way he listened when I talked about my dreams of climbing the corporate ladder. He seemed steady, a safe harbor in my chaotic world of deadlines and pitches. Our first date was simple, a walk in the park, ice cream cones melting in the summer heat, his shy smile making my heart flutter. But over the years, that flutter faded, replaced by a restless itch I couldn't scratch. I wanted more spontaneity, more adventure, more life asterisk. Ethan wasn't that guy. He'd suggest a quiet dinner at home while I craved rooftop bars and late-night dancing. He'd plan a hike while I dreamed of weekend getaways to Paris or New York. I started to resent him for it, for holding me back, for being so boring. I vented about it constantly to my friends, especially my best friend, Chloe, over wine at our favorite bar downtown. He's just so predictable, I'd say, swirling my glass of rosé, the neon lights of the bar reflecting in the liquid. I mean, I love him, but I feel like I'm 50 years old living with him. I need someone who can keep up with me, you know. Chloe, always the voice of reason, would raise an eyebrow. Ethan's a good guy, Mia. Maybe you're the one who needs to slow down and appreciate what you have. But I didn't listen. I kept complaining, kept dreaming of a life that sparkled, a life where I wasn't tied to a man who thought a wild night was binge-watching a documentary on bridges. My restlessness grew, and so did my frustration. I'd snap at him over little things, his oatmeal bowls left in the sink, his refusal to try the new fusion restaurant I'd found, his insistence on saving every penny for a future I wasn't even sure I wanted. "You're so boring, Ethan," I'd say, half joking, half serious, my voice sharp with irritation. He'd just nod, his jaw tight, and walk away, never fighting back, never pushing me to explain. I thought he didn't care. I was wrong. The tipping point came when I started working on a new campaign at the agency with a colleague named Ryan. Ryan's 30, a graphic designer with a sharp jawline, a wardrobe straight out of a fashion magazine, and a laugh that could light up a room. He's the opposite of Ethan, spontaneous, bold, always up for a challenge. We'd stay late at the office, brainstorming over takeout, our ideas bouncing off each other like sparks. He'd compliment my creativity, his eyes lingering a little too long, and I'd feel a rush I hadn't felt in years. One night, as we shared a pizza in the break room, the office quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning, Ryan leaned in, his voice low. "You're incredible, Mia," he said, his hand brushing mine as he reached for a slice. "I don't get why you're always talking about your husband like he's holding you back. A woman like you deserves someone who can match your energy." My cheeks flushed, my heart racing. "Ethan, he's a good guy," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "He's just boring. I don't know if he can handle me." Ryan smirked, his fingers grazing mine again, intentional this time. I could handle you, he said, his tone teasing but loaded. I laughed, but the air between us shifted, charged with possibility. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. After that night, the flirting escalated. We'd text during meetings, his messages playful but suggestive. You looked hot in that red blouse today. Drinks after work, just us? I'd reply with a winking emoji, my stomach fluttering, telling myself it was harmless, just a bit of fun to break the monotony of my life with Ethan. I didn't tell Chloe, she'd call me out, tell me I was playing with fire. But I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt alive, seen, desired. Ethan noticed the change. He'd ask why I was coming home late, why I was always on my phone, why I seemed distracted. Work's crazy, I'd say, avoiding his gaze, my lies piling up like bricks between us. He'd nod, but I saw the hurt in his eyes, the way his shoulders slumped. I told myself he'd get over it, that he was too boring to care enough to fight. I was so wrong. It happened on a Tuesday, a day so ordinary I didn't see it coming. I came home late from the office, another brainstorming session with Ryan that ended with drinks at a nearby bar, his hand on my knee under the table. Ethan was in the living room when I walked in, his laptop closed, his glasses off, his face unreadable. We need to talk, he said, his voice steady but cold. I sighed, dropping my bag on the floor. Can it wait, Ethan? I'm exhausted. No, he said, standing up. It can't. I heard you on the phone with Chloe last night, Mia. You called me boring again. You've been saying it for months, maybe longer. And I've tried to be patient, to give you space, but I can't anymore. My stomach dropped. I'd been careless, venting to Chloe on speakerphone while I thought he was asleep. Ethan, I didn't mean it like that, I said, my voice defensive. I'm frustrated. I need more, okay? I need excitement. He looked at me, his eyes hard. And I need a wife who respects me, who doesn't flirt with other men behind my back. I saw your texts, Mia, with Ryan. My heart stopped. You went through my phone, I snapped, anger flaring to cover my guilt. You left it unlocked, he said, his voice calm but cutting. I wasn't looking for anything, but I found enough. I'm done, Mia, I'm leaving. I laughed, a harsh, nervous sound. Leaving? You're leaving me? Over a few texts. No, he said, picking up a duffel bag I hadn't noticed by the couch. I'm leaving because I deserve better than a wife who thinks I'm boring, who doesn't see me for who I am. I've loved you, Mia, but I can't keep pretending that's enough. He walked to the door, pausing to set a note on the counter. I'll be at my brother for a while. Don't call me. I need space. And then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me in a silence that felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I stood there, frozen, the note in my hand. Mia, I hope you find what you're looking for. I need to find myself too. Ethan. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the couch, the yellow throw blanket tangled around me. He was gone. My boring, predictable Ethan had left me. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. What if I just made the biggest mistake of my life? The apartment felt different after Ethan left, the silence no longer oppressive but strangely liberating. I woke up the next morning, the yellow throw blanket still tangled around me from where I'd collapsed on the couch, and for a moment, I didn't miss the sound of his oatmeal grinder or the soft hum of his morning routine. The note he'd left sat on the counter, its words burned into my mind. I hope you find what you're looking for. I need to find myself too. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash, telling myself I didn't need him, that his boring predictability had been holding me back. I called Chloe that afternoon, my voice bright as I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did before noon when Ethan was around. He's gone, I said, packing the living room, the potted plants catching the afternoon light. Ethan packed up and left. Can you believe it? I'm free. Free, Chloe's tone was cautious, her voice crackling through the speaker. Mia, what happened? You called him boring, sure, but leaving? That's big. He heard me venting to you, I admitted, swirling the wine. And he saw my texts with Ryan. He flipped out and left a note, said he deserves better. Whatever, I'm not going to beg him to stay. There was a pause. Ryan, the guy from work, Mia, are you sure about this? Ethan's a good guy, maybe you should talk to him. No way, I said, laughing it off. I'm done with the routine, I'm going to live a little. Ryan asked me out tonight, drinks after work, I'm going. Chloe sighed. Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything you'll regret. I hung up, ignoring her warning, my mind buzzing with excitement. I showered, slipped into a tight black dress I'd bought but never worn with Ethan, and styled my hair in loose waves. I felt alive, unburdened, ready to step into the life I'd always wanted. That night, I met Ryan at a trendy rooftop bar downtown, the city lights twinkling below us, the air warm with the promise of summer. He looked even better than at the office, dark jeans, a fitted blazer, a smile that made my pulse race. You look incredible, he said, handing me a martini, his fingers brushing mine. No husband tonight. Nope, I said, sipping the drink, the alcohol burning pleasantly. He's gone, we're done. His eyes lit up, a spark of interest I hadn't seen from Ethan in years. Good for you, he said, leaning closer. You deserve someone who can keep up with you, like me. We laughed, the conversation flowing easily, work, music, travel dreams I'd never shared with Ethan. His hand found my knee under the table, his touch bold, and I didn't pull away. Let's dance, he suggested, and we moved to the crowded floor, his body close to mine, the music pulsing through us. I felt free, desired, every moment a rebellion against the boredom I'd blamed on Ethan. Over the next few days, the flirting intensified. We'd text, looked hot today in that skirt. Can't stop thinking about last night. Asterisk and meet after work, sometimes at the bar, sometimes at his place. One evening, as we shared a bottle of wine on his couch, his apartment a chaotic mix of art supplies and vinyl records, he kissed me, his lips firm and urgent. I kissed him back, my hands in his hair, the thrill drowning out the guilt that flickered in the back of my mind. This was what I'd wanted: excitement, passion, a life that sparkled. But the guilt lingered. I'd come home to the empty apartment, the potted plants wilting from neglect, and think of Ethan, his quiet support, his steady presence. I'd push the thoughts away, telling myself I was better off, that he was the one who'd left. I called Chloe again, bragging about my nights with Ryan. He's everything Ethan wasn't, I said, lounging on the couch with a glass of wine. Spontaneous, fun, sexy. Sounds like a rebound, Chloe said, her tone skeptical. Mia, are you sure this is what you want? Ethan might have been boring, but he loved you. He didn't fight for me, I snapped, my voice sharp. If he cared, he wouldn't have left. She didn't argue, but her silence spoke volumes. I hung up annoyed and texted Ryan, your place tonight? His reply, asterisk hell yes asterisk, erased my doubts, at least for the moment. With Ethan gone, the apartment became my playground. I rearranged the furniture, tossing out his engineering manuals, replacing them with fashion magazines and a new speaker for upbeat playlists. I ordered takeout every night, sushi, pizza, Thai, things Ethan would have called extravagant, and let the dishes pile up in the sink. I stayed out late, danced until my feet ached, and woke up to a mess I didn't care to clean. It was chaotic, messy, and exactly what I'd craved. But the freedom came with cracks. I missed the little things, Ethan's coffee brewing, his habit of folding my laundry, the way he'd leave a note if he was running late. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to tell him about a funny moment at work, only to remember he wasn't there. The guilt grew, a quiet whisper I tried to drown with wine and Ryan's attention. I'd lie in bed, the sheets cold without Ethan's warmth, and wonder if I'd been too harsh, if boring was just a label I'd slapped on him to justify my restlessness. At work, Ryan became more demanding. Let's take a weekend trip, he'd say, his hand on my waist during a lunch break. Somewhere exotic, Vegas maybe. I'd agree, excited, but the planning fell to me, bookings, reservations, while he'd shrug off details with a laugh. You're the organized one, he'd say, and I'd feel a pang of familiarity like Ethan's reliability I once mocked. One night, after a particularly wild evening at his place, I woke up to find him asleep, his phone buzzing with texts from another woman, asterisk, miss you last night. When are we hanging out again? My stomach churned. Was I just another fling to him? I confronted him, my voice shaking. Who's she? He laughed, pulling me close. "Just a friend, babe, you're my girl." But his casual dismissal didn't ease the doubt. I smiled, but inside, I felt a crack in the excitement I'd chased. 2 weeks after he left, I got a text from Ethan, short, formal. "I've moved my things out. You can keep the apartment. I'll handle the legal stuff soon." My heart sank. Moved out? Legal stuff? Divorce? I hadn't thought that far, assuming he'd come back once he cooled off. I replied, "Can we talk? I miss you." No answer. I called, but it went to voicemail. "Ethan, please," I said, my voice breaking. "I didn't mean it. Let's figure this out." Silence. I told myself it didn't matter. I had Ryan, I had freedom, I had a life that wasn't boring. But the text gnawed at me, a reminder of what I'd lost. I threw myself into work and Ryan, trying to fill the void, but the apartment felt emptier with Ethan's things gone, his manuals, his toolbox, the faint scent of his cologne lingering like a ghost. The weekend trip to Vegas loomed, and I poured myself into planning, flights, hotel, outfits, while Ryan flirted with me over text but dodged details. The night before we left, we met at a bar and I brought it up. "You haven't confirmed anything," I said, my tone sharp. "I'm doing all the work here." He shrugged, sipping his beer. "Relax, Mia, it's a trip, not a job. Let's just go and have fun." His nonchalance irritated me. "Fun? I'm spending my money and time on this. You could at least help." He rolled his eyes. "You're turning into a nag. Maybe you're not as fun as I thought." The words stung, echoing my complaints about Ethan. I stared at him, my anger flaring. "Maybe you're not worth the effort," I shot back, grabbing my purse. I left, his laughter following me out, and drove home, tears of frustration blurring the road. Was this the excitement I'd wanted? A man who dismissed me as easily as I'd dismissed Ethan. A month after Ethan left, I was a mess. Nights with Ryan losing their shine, the apartment a chaotic reflection of my inner turmoil. I'd stopped watering the plants, let the dishes stack, ignored Chloe's calls. I told myself I was fine, that I'd find my groove, but the emptiness grew. One day, Ryan canceled our Vegas trip last minute. Something came up, and I snapped, ending things over text. "I'm done, you're not what I thought." His reply, "your loss," was the final straw. I decided to treat myself, to reclaim some control. I went to a cozy cafe downtown, a place Ethan and I used to love. Hopping a latte might lift my spirits. I ordered, my hands trembling, and sat by the window, watching the world go by. And then I saw him, Ethan, walking in with a woman I didn't recognize. The cafe was warm, the scent of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon pastries filling the air as I sat by the window, my latte cooling in front of me. I'd come here to escape the chaos of my life, to find a moment of peace after the whirlwind of ending things with Ryan. The cozy space, with its wooden tables and soft jazz playing in the background, used to be a sanctuary for me and Ethan. We'd spent countless Sundays here, him with his black coffee and a book, me with my latte and a notebook, sketching ideas for work. But now I was alone until I was. I saw him through the glass, walking toward the cafe with a woman on his arm. Ethan, my Ethan, or at least the man I'd thought was mine. My breath caught as I watched him hold the door open for her, his smile wide, his laugh carrying through the chatter of the room as they stepped inside. He looked different. Gone were the khakis and button-ups I'd mocked, replaced by a fitted leather jacket, dark jeans, and a scarf that gave him an effortless, stylish edge. His hair was longer, tousled in a way I'd never seen, and his glasses were gone, contacts maybe. He looked confident, alive, not boring. The woman beside him was stunning, tall, with auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, a knit sweater hugging her frame, her laugh bright as she touched his arm. They sat at a table near the counter, their heads close as they shared a menu, their ease with each other a knife to my chest. My hands tightened around my mug, the ceramic burning my palms, but I couldn't look away. Ethan was laughing, really laughing, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from him in years, not since our early days together. He looked happy, lighter than I'd ever seen him, and the realization hit me like a tidal wave. He wasn't boring. He'd never been boring. I'd just been too blind to see him. Jealousy surged through me, hot and sharp, a wildfire I couldn't control. My mind raced with questions. Who was she? How long had he known her? Had he moved on this quickly in just a month? I watched as she leaned in, whispering something that made him grin, his hand brushing hers on the table. My stomach churned, my latte forgotten as I gripped the edge of my seat, my nails digging into the wood. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ethan was supposed to be pinning for me, regretting his decision to leave, not sitting here with some gorgeous woman, looking like a man I'd never known. I stood, my legs shaky, and walked toward their table, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the jazz anymore. "Ethan," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, cutting through their conversation. He looked up, his smile fading as he saw me, his eyes widening in surprise. "Mia," he said, his tone neutral but guarded, "what are you doing here?" The woman glanced between us, her expression curious but polite. I ignored her, my gaze locked on Ethan, my jealousy spilling over. "I could ask you the same thing," I snapped, my voice trembling. "Who's this? What's going on?" Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm, his hand resting on the table. "This is Hannah," he said, gesturing to her. "A friend, we're just catching up, not that it's any of your business." "Not my business?" I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "You're my husband, Ethan. We've been apart for a month and you're already out here with someone else. Looking like this?" I gestured to his outfit, his new look, my voice cracking with emotion. "What happened to you?" Hannah shifted uncomfortably, but Ethan's eyes hardened. "What happened to me?" he repeated, his voice low but firm. "I stopped trying to be someone I'm not for you, Mia. You called me boring over and over until I believed it. But I'm not. I never was, you just didn't see me." His words hit me like a slap, the truth of them cutting deeper than I expected. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Hannah touched his arm gently, her voice soft. "Maybe I should give you two a moment," she said, standing. "I'll wait outside." "No, Hannah, stay," Ethan said, his tone gentle but firm. He looked back at me, his expression unreadable. "Mia, we're done. You made that clear when you started flirting with Ryan, when you called me boring to anyone who'd listen. I'm moving on, and you should too." I stood there, frozen, as Hannah hesitated, then sat back down, her hand still on his arm. The cafe seemed to shrink, the murmurs of other patrons fading as my world narrowed to this moment. I wanted to scream, to beg, to tell him I was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I turned and stumbled out, tears burning my eyes, the cool air hitting my face as I leaned against the brick wall outside, my chest heaving with sobs. I drove home in a daze, the image of Ethan and Hannah seared into my mind, their laughter, their closeness, his transformation. My apartment felt colder than ever, the potted plants now completely wilted, the dishes still piled in the sink, the yellow throw blanket crumpled on the couch. I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, and cried until my throat was raw. I'd lost him. I'd lost the man I'd dismissed as boring, the man who'd loved me despite my flaws, the man who'd turned out to be everything I'd ever wanted, just not for me. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through old photos of us. Our wedding day, me in a white dress with daisies in my hair, him in a suit that didn't quite fit, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. A selfie on our first hike, him squinting into the sun while I laughed at his terrible angle. A quiet night on this very couch, his arm around me as we watched some documentary he loved. I'd mocked those moments, called them boring, but now they felt like treasures I'd thrown away. I called Chloe, my voice shaking as I told her everything. The cafe, Ethan's new look, Hannah, my outburst. "I messed up, Chloe," I sobbed. "I called him boring, but he's not. He's amazing, and I didn't see it until it was too late." "Oh, Mia," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You pushed him away. You wanted excitement, and you got it with Ryan, but look where it led. Ethan's moving on, and you need to let him." "But I don't want to," I said, my voice breaking. "I want him back, I love him." "Then you need to show him," she said. "But you also need to be ready for the fact that he might not want you back. You hurt him, Mia. Badly." Her words settled like a stone in my chest. I hung up, my mind racing with what I could do, how I could fix this. But deep down, I knew she was right, he might already be gone. The next day, I drove to his brother's house, where he'd said he was staying. My hands trembled as I knocked, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. His brother Mark answered, his expression guarded. "Mia," he said, crossing his arms. "What do you want?" "I need to see Ethan," I said, my voice desperate. "Please, Mark, I need to talk to him." Mark sighed, stepping aside. "He's in the garage, but I'm warning you, he's not the same guy you knew." I walked to the garage, the smell of oil and sawdust hitting me as I saw Ethan working on a motorcycle, his sleeves rolled up, his new look even more striking up close. He glanced up, his expression hardening as he saw me. "Mia," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "What are you doing here?" "I'm sorry," I blurted, stepping closer. "I was wrong, Ethan. I called you boring, but I was wrong. I saw you at the cafe with Hannah and I got jealous. I miss you. I love you. Please give me another chance." He set the rag down, his eyes cold. "A chance? Mia, you spent years telling me I wasn't enough. You flirted with another guy, disrespected me, pushed me away. I'm finally figuring out who I am without you, and I like this version of me. Hannah, she sees me. She doesn't think I'm boring." "But I see you now," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "I see how amazing you are. Please don't do this." He shook his head, his voice steady. "It's too late, Mia. I've filed for divorce. I'm moving on. You should too." The word *divorce hit me like a freight train. I nodded, my vision blurring with tears, and turned to leave, the sound of his wrench against metal echoing behind me as I walked away. Back at the apartment, I curled up on the couch, the yellow throw blanket around me, and let the tears come. I thought about every moment I'd taken Ethan for granted, his quiet love, his steady support, the way he'd always been there, even when I didn't deserve it. I'd called him boring, but he'd transformed, become the man I'd always wanted, just not for me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through his brother's Instagram. Mark had posted a photo of Ethan and Hannah at a concert, their faces lit up with joy, his arm around her. He looked happy, truly happy, and I realized I had no right to take that from him. I'd lost him, not because he was boring, but because I'd been blind. I called Chloe again, my voice hollow. "He's gone," I said. "He's filing for divorce, he's with her, I lost him." "I'm sorry, Mia," she said, her voice gentle. "But maybe this is a chance for you to find yourself too. You've been running from who you are, chasing something you thought you needed. Maybe it's time to stop." Her words lingered as I hung up, staring at the wilted plants, the messy apartment, the life I'd created in his absence. She was right. I needed to stop running, to face myself, to learn from my mistakes. But the pain of seeing Ethan with Hannah, of knowing I'd pushed him to become the man I'd always wanted, was a wound that wouldn't heal easily. The weeks after seeing Ethan in the cafe blurred into a haze of grief and self-reflection. I couldn't shake the image of him with Hannah, his easy smile, his new look, the way he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. It haunted me, a constant reminder of what I'd thrown away. I'd called him boring, pushed him away, and now he was the man I'd always wanted, just not mine anymore. A month after our confrontation in the garage, I received an email from Ethan's lawyer. The subject line was cold and formal, "Divorce proceedings." My stomach dropped as I opened it, my hands trembling. The papers were attached, a digital signature request waiting for me. He was serious. He'd filed for divorce, just as he'd said. There was a note from Ethan himself, short and to the point. "Mia, I hope you're doing well. I think this is best for both of us. I'm keeping the motorcycle and some furniture. You can have the apartment. Let's make this as clean as possible. Ethan." I stared at the screen, tears welling up as I realized this was it. The end of our marriage, the end of us. I signed the papers, my signature shaky, and hit send, the finality of it hitting me like a wave. I was officially divorced, a 29-year-old single woman who'd lost everything because she couldn't see what she had until it was gone. I called Chloe, my voice hollow as I told her the news. "It's over," I said, sitting on the couch with the yellow throw blanket around me, the apartment dark except for the glow of my laptop. "He sent the papers. We're done." "I'm so sorry, Mia," Chloe said, her voice gentle. "I know this hurts, but maybe it's a chance for you to start fresh. You've been stuck, chasing things that didn't make you happy. Maybe now you can find what does." Her words lingered as I hung up, staring at the wilted potted plants I'd neglected for months. She was right, I'd been stuck, chasing excitement with Ryan, dismissing Ethan, running from myself. Now I had nothing, no husband, no fling, no excuses. Just me, alone with my mistakes. The apartment felt emptier than ever without Ethan's things. He'd come while I was at work to take the last of his belongings, the toolbox, the bookshelf, the few gadgets he'd left behind. The space felt hollow, a shell of the life we'd built together. I walked through it, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, and stopped at the spot where his workshop used to be. The spare room was empty now, just a few stray screws on the floor, a reminder of the man who'd once filled it with quiet purpose. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, and let myself feel the weight of my loss. I thought about every moment I'd taken Ethan for granted, his morning oatmeal, his steady hands fixing things around the house, the way he'd listen when I rambled about work. I'd called him boring, but he'd been the foundation of my life, the one constant I could always rely on. And I'd thrown it away for a fleeting thrill with Ryan, for a life that sparkled but left me burned. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old texts from Ethan, picked up your almond milk. Dinner's ready when you get home. Love you, Mia. The simplicity of his love brought fresh tears to my eyes. I'd wanted more, but more had left me with nothing. I thought about calling him, begging one last time, but I stopped myself. He'd moved on. He was happy. I had to let him go. Chloe's words about starting fresh stuck with me. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, surrounded by the ghosts of my past. I started small, cleaning the apartment, finally washing the dishes that had piled up in the sink, watering the few plants that weren't beyond saving. I threw out the fashion magazines I'd bought during my freedom phase, replacing them with a journal I found in a drawer. I began writing, first about my regrets, then about my hopes, the words messy but honest. I quit my job at the ad agency. Ryan still worked there, and seeing him every day was a reminder of my mistakes. I took a lower-paying gig at a nonprofit, helping with their outreach campaigns. The work was quieter, less glamorous, but it felt meaningful, a way to give back instead of chasing validation. My new coworkers didn't know my past, didn't ask about the ring I no longer wore, and I found a strange comfort in their indifference. I started therapy, too, recommended by Chloe. My therapist, Dr. Harper, was a soft-spoken woman with a knack for asking hard questions. "Why did you call Ethan boring?" she asked in our first session, her pen poised over her notepad. I hesitated, the question digging deeper than I expected. "Because he was predictable," I said finally. "He liked routine. I wanted excitement, spontaneity. I felt trapped." She nodded, her eyes kind but probing. "And did that excitement make you happy? With Ryan, with the life you chased?" "No," I admitted, my voice small. "It left me empty. I realize now that Ethan wasn't boring, he was steady. I was the one who couldn't handle that. I was running from myself, not him." Dr. Harper smiled faintly. "That's a good start, Mia. Recognizing that is the first step to rebuilding, not just your life, but who you are." Months passed, and I settled into a new rhythm. I moved out of the apartment, unable to bear the memories, and into a small studio downtown. The space was tiny but mine, white walls I painted a soft blue, a new potted plant I actually watered, a desk where I worked and wrote. I joined a book club, something Ethan would have loved, and found joy in the quiet discussions, the shared laughter over coffee. I wasn't the loud, ambitious Mia anymore, the one who needed to be the center of attention. I was learning to be okay with myself, with stillness. I saw Ethan one last time, by chance, at a grocery store 6 months after the divorce. I was buying ingredients for a soup I'd been craving, my cart half full, when I turned the corner and saw him in the produce aisle. He looked good, still stylish, his leather jacket now a staple, his hair still tousled. Hannah wasn't with him, but I noticed a ring on his finger, a simple band that hadn't been there before. My heart clenched, but I forced a smile as he looked up and saw me. "Mia," he said, his tone warm but distant, "you look good." "Thanks," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "So do you. I heard you got engaged. Congratulations." He nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Yeah, Hannah and I were happy. I hope you're doing well." I am, I said, and for the first time I meant it. I'm sorry, Ethan, for everything. I was wrong about you. I hope you know that. He looked at me, his eyes softening. I know, take care, Mia. He walked away, and I watched him go, a bittersweet ache in my chest. I'd lost him, but I'd gained something too, a chance to rebuild, to be better. A year after the divorce, I stood in my studio, the blue walls glowing in the morning light, my new plant thriving on the windowsill. I'd started a blog not for fame, but for myself, writing about my journey, my mistakes, my growth. It was small, just a few readers, but it felt honest, a way to process the pain and turn it into something meaningful. I walked to the cafe where I'd seen Ethan with Hannah, the place that had once broken me. I ordered a latte, sat by the window, and watched the world go by. I thought about Ethan, about the man I'd called boring, the man who transformed into someone I'd never truly known. I hoped he was happy with Hannah, that he'd found the life he deserved. And me, I was finding mine. It wasn't the sparkling, chaotic life I once chased, but it was mine, quiet, steady, real. I'd lost Ethan, but I'd found myself, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough.